Hello everybody. Wanted to take a minute here to explain how to assign spot colors in Adobe Illustrator. As you may know, spot colors are used for a variety of printing purposes. It's a way to simplify your artwork so that it translates well to scenarios like screen printing, maybe vinyl cutting, a few other printing processes that require spot colors. So it's a good idea to know how to do this. To be able to set yourself up, what we want to do is have our artwork laid out on our page, and then we also want to have access to our color palette and then also our swatches palette. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the window menu and also open swatches, so that's also visible. If I select one of my colors here, if I grab the eyedropper and I click on one of the colors, like say the yellow here, if I look at the color palette, it shows me that this is a process color right now. It's 0% cyan, 34% yellow, or magenta, 84% yellow, 0% black, which would be great for a typical process color printing scenario. But for our purposes, we need to create spot colors. That's where the swatch palette comes in. If you look down in the corner of the swatch palette, there's a little library button. That button leads to a variety of other palettes that we're going to use, one of which is what we call color books. And in here you'll find the majority of the spot color printing books that are used by professional printers. There's a large list here including all the Pantone colors or the PMS colors. So just out of habit, I'm going to go ahead and select Pantone Solid Coated, which is part of a very common color system. So I'll click that, and that's going to open a new palette for me. And as you see on this Pantone palette, I've got all these little swatches, and they have the little white triangle in the corner. That's usually what identifies a spot color, is a little white triangle in the corner. That's how you know that swatch is a little different than your others. Now, to be able to preview this palette a little better, I'm going to change the way that it looks. I'm going to click on the drop-down menu, and I'm going to select Large List View. Now it's going to show me the swatch and the name of those swatches. You see, these are all predetermined, pre-mixed colors. They all have identifiable labels. If you had a swatch book, you could match your color manually. A lot of printers have these books, and you can select your colors ahead of time. For our purposes, we're not going to be that super precise. We're going to work visually. We're going to look at the colors on our artwork, and we're going to look for a swatch in the system that seems similar. So this is how I'm going to do it. I've already prepared my artwork and some swatch squares down here on the bottom. And basically I'm going to use those to help me identify the closest matching color. I'm going to go ahead and use my selection tool. I'm going to select these swatch squares. I'm going to duplicate them. And I'm going to use the bottom set of squares to look for a corresponding spot color. So black, actually I can go back up to the top. There is a Pantone black, so I'm going to click on this swatch here, and I'm going to select Pantone black. Then I'm going to select the next one, and you see it changed that swatch, and it added the swatch color, that new Pantone black, to my swatch palette. Next, I'll click on gray here, and actually that gray looks okay, the Pantone 0961. Now this is where visually you can start to look at your colors and say, well, is that close? Is it not close? It's a little bit off. I'm going to scroll through my list until I find the grays. They're usually toward the end. So actually, maybe I'll pick one of these, like Cool Gray 6. Let's see what that looks like. Cool Gray 6, that looks a lot closer. Okay, red, let's go through and look. I used to have some of these memorized. There is a very common red up at the top, Pantone Red 32. Just for old time's sake, I'm going to pick that. And notice as I pick these swatches, how in the color palette itself, it switches and it no longer shows me that process separation, the process colors. It is just one solid 100% Pantone red. Okay, I'm going to click on yellow next. This one I think I'll have to dig down and find. Let's go with something like Pantone 7409. A little bit off, but close enough. Next, go to green. Let's see here. Hey, 347 looks pretty good. Pantone 347. Kablam. Look at that, not bad. And white. In reality, I don't have to worry about white because in this scenario, white is not a print color. Oh, I take that back. You know what? I could be printing this on a t-shirt. It could be a color. So I am going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and don't know that I'm going to have a bright white swatch. So I'm going to go ahead and select a super light gray as my swatch this time, like Pantone 400. No, that's not right. I don't like that. Cool Gray 1. Okay, so just understand that in this case, I'm using a light gray to represent white. I would actually print with a white ink, but in this case, just to identify it so the printer understands what it is, I'm going to use that little light gray as a placeholder. Okay, so now we've got our swatches identified and our swatch palette is full of those spot colors. Now what we want to do is assign those spot colors to our artwork. There's a handy tool that will help us select and modify all the colors all at once. And here we go. Basically, I'm going to use the magic wand. And what the magic wand does for me is it selects all the similarly colored objects. So I switch to the magic wand and I click on the black letters. And notice how it selected the original process color square and it selected all of the objects that share that black color, and it shows over here that they are the same. Well, this time around, all I'm going to do is go down to my swatch palette. You say tomato, I say tomato. Here we go. I'm going to click on the Pantone black swatch and added all that color to all those objects all at once. I'll do that for every color on my list. So I'm going to click on the gray and notice how it picked up all the objects that share that color, except, look at that, it picked up some of these little white pieces of my artwork. I don't want that. That has to do with the tolerance of the magic wand, and sometimes the magic wand selects too many colors in a range. So I need to fix that. And to do that, I have to double click on the magic wand itself. And you see how the tolerance for the magic wand is set to 32? That means it's too sensitive. I need to make it a little bit duller. So I'm going to change that number from 32 to something like 10. I'm just picking a random lower number so it's less sensitive. I'm going to deselect my artwork and then switch back to the magic wand at a tolerance of 10. Try selecting that gray artwork again. Okay, there we go. So now you'll see in the gray swatch that it only selected objects that are colored gray. Now it's okay for me to change that stuff using the gray swatch I have in my swatch palette. I'm going to proceed to the next color. How about red? Okay, I'm going to pick that new spot color red. Pick yellow, and pick that new spot color yellow. Pick green. Now I'm going to switch to that little swatch color green. And then last of all, I got to pick everything that's white. And there we go. Sorry, I selected the wrong thing. There we go. Selected those white objects, and I'm going to pick that little light gray swatch that I had used before. Okay. So, what does that do for me? Well, now I've created artwork that has just spot colors in it, no process colors, and my artwork is prepared for color separation, for spot color separation when I print it and when I make the printable file for screen printing or vinyl cutting. And I'll put out another video for doing that as well.